What if some of the world's most incredible archaeological discoveries were never truly lost, only forgotten? Across deserts, forests, mountains, and beneath the sea, ancient civilizations left behind extraordinary places that still survive today. Forgotten temples, hidden fortresses, perfectly preserved settlements, monuments carved into living rock, engineering that continues to work after thousands of years, and mysteries that archaeologists are still trying to understand. Tonight, we're traveling across the ancient world to explore some of history's most remarkable discoveries. Every place you'll see is real. Every chapter is based on archaeological evidence, and every site reveals another piece of humanity's forgotten story. If mysteries like this keep you up at night, I've got something for you. I just lowered the price on my Ancient Sleep Rituals book to $9.99. 22 real rituals from Egypt, Sumer, the Maya, and the Norse. Links in the description. Now, back to today's story. So, settle in, and let's travel back through time to our very first discovery. The buried ceremonial ball courts of Caguana. Deep within the green mountains of central Puerto Rico, where rivers wind through dense tropical forests, ancient stone plazas lie hidden beneath the trees. For centuries, nature concealed them beneath thick vegetation. The ceremonies ended. The people disappeared, and their sacred gathering place slowly faded from memory. Then archaeologists uncovered a remarkable discovery, a vast ceremonial complex built by the Taino people, where massive stone ball courts once echoed with ritual games, religious ceremonies, and the voices of an entire community. This is Caguana, one of the most important archaeological sites in the Caribbean. Caguana flourished between the 13th and 15th centuries, long before European ships reached the islands of the Caribbean. At its height, it served as one of the principal ceremonial and political centers of the Taino civilization. Communities traveled from across the surrounding region to gather here for festivals, religious rituals, trade, and important social events. Far more than a village, Caguana became the spiritual heart of an entire landscape. At the center of the site are a series of carefully constructed ceremonial ball courts, known as bateches. Archaeologists have identified more than 10 stone-lined plazas arranged around a central ceremonial area. Each court was outlined with massive river stones, many standing upright to define the sacred spaces. Their precise layout demonstrates careful planning and sophisticated engineering. These were among the largest ceremonial courts ever built by the Taino people. The ball games played within these courts were far more than sporting competitions. They held deep religious and political significance. Matches often accompanied seasonal festivals, ceremonies honoring ancestral spirits, and important gatherings between neighboring communities. Leaders may have settled disputes through ritual competition rather than warfare. The games strengthened alliances, celebrated tradition, and reinforced the authority of local chiefs. Every match carried meaning beyond victory or defeat. Surrounding many of the courts, archaeologists discovered beautifully carved stone monoliths. Some display human faces. Others depict animals, spirits, or symbolic geometric designs. These petroglyphs remain among the finest examples of Taino stone carving. Although many symbols are still not fully understood, researchers believe they represented powerful ancestral beings and sacred forces connected to the natural world. Excavations have uncovered pottery, stone tools, ceremonial objects, shell ornaments, grinding stones, and fragments of everyday household items. Together, these discoveries reveal that Caguana was not occupied only during festivals. People lived nearby, prepared rituals, crafted tools, and maintained the ceremonial complex over many generations. The sacred center remained active for centuries. The surrounding landscape was carefully chosen. The site lies beside the Tanama River, whose waters likely held spiritual importance. Fertile valleys supported farming communities growing cassava, maize, and tropical crops. The nearby forests provided timber, medicinal plants, and wildlife. For the Taino, the natural environment was inseparable from religious belief. The sanctuary became part of the landscape itself. Unlike many ancient civilizations, the Taino left no written records. Everything archaeologists know about Caguana comes from excavation, artifacts, and the remarkable stone monuments preserved across the site. Every carved boulder, every ceremonial court, and every buried object helps reconstruct the history of a civilization whose voice nearly disappeared after European contact, transformed the Caribbean forever. Modern archaeology continues uncovering new details about Kagwana. Careful excavation has revealed additional ceremonial features beneath the soil. Three-dimensional mapping records the arrangement of the stone plazas. Conservation work protects the delicate petroglyphs from weathering. Researchers continue studying how astronomy, religion, and community life shaped the design of the ceremonial complex. Many questions remain unanswered. Walking through Kagwana today. The ball games have long since ended. The ceremonies have fallen silent. The chiefs who gathered here are gone. Yet the great stone courts remain, quiet beneath the tropical forest. They continue preserving the memory of a people whose traditions once united communities across the Caribbean through ritual, celebration, and shared belief. The buried ceremonial ball courts of Kagwana remind us that some of history's greatest monuments were built not to conquer kingdoms, but to bring communities together. Hidden among the forests of Puerto Rico, its sacred plazas, ancient petroglyphs, and remarkable ceremonial courts preserve the enduring story of the Indus Civilization, a culture whose legacy continues to emerge from beneath the earth, one discovery at a time. The carved reliefs of Eflatun Pinar's water shrine. In the quiet countryside of central Turkey, a natural spring flows from the foot of a low hill. Its waters have never stopped. For more than 3,000 years, they have continued to emerge from the earth, passing through one of the most extraordinary monuments of the ancient Hittite world, towering stone blocks, carved with kings, gods, and mythical creatures, still stand beside the water exactly where ancient builders placed them, unlike a temple hidden beneath ruins, or a palace buried by time. This sanctuary has remained in the open, guarding a sacred spring since the Bronze Age. Eflatun Pinar was constructed during the 13th century BC, when the Hittite Empire ruled much of Anatolia. The Hittites were among the great powers of the ancient Near East, competing with Egypt, Assyria, and Babylon. Religion shaped every aspect of their society, and natural springs were believed to be sacred places where the human world met the divine. The sanctuary at Eflatun Pinar became one of the finest expressions of that belief. At the heart of the monument stands an impressive stone facade, measuring nearly 7 meters high, built from massive limestone blocks. It is decorated with carefully carved reliefs arranged in perfect symmetry. Unlike ordinary architectural decoration, every figure carries symbolic meaning. Together, they tell a story of divine order, royal authority, and the life-giving power of water. The upper section of the shrine depicts the principal gods of the Hittite pantheon. A powerful storm god stands beside the sun goddess, figures believed to protect both the kingdom and the natural world. Below them, mountain deities support the monument, while winged creatures and mythical beings complete the sacred composition. Each carving reflects the Hittite belief that the universe depended upon harmony between heaven, earth, and water. The spring itself was just as important as the monument. Fresh water flowed directly through the sanctuary before continuing into the surrounding landscape. Archaeologists believe priests performed rituals here to honor the gods responsible for rainfall, fertility, and agricultural prosperity. Offerings may have been placed beside the flowing water, while ceremonies marked the changing seasons throughout the year. The monument transformed an ordinary spring into a sacred place of worship. Unlike many Hittite monuments, Eflatun Pinar was not located inside a major city. Instead, it stood within the countryside, perhaps serving nearby farming communities or travelers moving through the region. Its isolated location reminds archaeologists that sacred places were often built where nature itself was believed to possess divine power. The landscape became part of the sanctuary. Excavations around the site have uncovered pottery, stone tools, fragments of ceremonial objects, and evidence of ancient water channels. These discoveries suggest the sanctuary remained active for generations, although many rituals have been lost to history. The monument itself preserves valuable clues about Hittite religious traditions that written texts alone cannot explain. One of the greatest mysteries surrounding Eflatun Pinar is how its enormous stone blocks were transported and assembled. Some weigh several tons, yet they were carefully fitted together without modern machinery. Even after more than 3,000 years, much of the monument remains standing. A remarkable testament to Bronze Age engineering. Following the collapse of the Hittite Empire around 1200 BC, the sanctuary gradually fell out of use. Empires rose and disappeared. Religions changed. Nearby settlements came and went, yet the spring never stopped flowing. Protected by the surrounding countryside, the carved reliefs quietly survived, while much of the Hittite world faded into history. modern archaeology continues to study the shrine using digital mapping, three-dimensional scanning, and detailed analysis of the carvings. Researchers hope to better understand the religious symbolism, construction techniques, and relationship between the monument and its surrounding landscape. Even today, Iflatun Pinar remains one of the best-preserved Hittite water sanctuaries ever discovered. Standing before the monument today, the ancient gods still overlook the flowing spring. The ceremonies have ended, the priests have vanished, yet the water continues its endless journey, just as it did when Hittite worshippers gathered here more than 3,000 years ago. The shrine remains a rare place where nature, architecture, and belief have endured together through the centuries. The carved reliefs of Iflatun Pinar's water shrine remind us that some of humanity's oldest sacred places were created not upon mountain peaks or inside great cities, but beside the quiet springs that gave life to entire civilizations. Hidden in the heart of Turkey, its magnificent stone carvings, flowing waters, and enduring Hittite artistry preserve the remarkable story of a civilization that saw the divine reflected in the natural world itself. The Byzantine bucket buried beside a ship. In the quiet countryside of eastern England, an ordinary-looking field concealed one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in British history. Beneath the soil rested the remains of an enormous Anglo-Saxon ship, a royal burial unlike anything ever found before, surrounded by treasures of gold, silver, weapons, and ceremonial objects. Archaeologists uncovered an unexpected artifact, a bronze bucket. At first glance, it seemed almost insignificant beside the magnificent riches of Sutton Hoo, but this simple vessel had traveled farther than almost anything else in the burial, carrying with it a story that stretched across the Mediterranean and into the final centuries of the Byzantine Empire. The object is known today as the Bromswell bucket. It was discovered within the famous Sutton Hoo Cemetery near the River Deben in Suffolk, dating to the 6th century AD. The bucket is believed to have been made in the eastern Mediterranean, most likely within the Byzantine Empire. Its journey from the shores of the Mediterranean to an Anglo-Saxon royal burial nearly 4,000 kilometers away reveals just how connected the early medieval world truly was. Unlike the finely crafted gold jewelry buried nearby, the bucket was originally an everyday object, made from hammered bronze. It featured elegant decorative bands and sturdy metal fittings, yet somewhere during its long life, its purpose changed. By the time it reached England, it had become something far more valuable than an ordinary household container. Its presence inside one of Europe's richest ship burials suggests it had acquired great symbolic importance. The Sutton Hoo ship burial itself remains one of archaeology's greatest discoveries. Excavated in 1939, researchers uncovered the imprint of an enormous wooden ship nearly 27 meters long. Although the wood had long decayed, the outline remained preserved in the sandy soil. At its center stood a magnificent burial chamber filled with extraordinary treasures. The Bromswell bucket rested among these remarkable objects, becoming part of a burial intended for one of Anglo-Saxon England's most powerful rulers. Archaeologists believe the burial may belong to King Raedwald of East Anglia, although absolute certainty remains impossible. Whoever was buried here possessed immense wealth and extensive international connections. Gold coins from continental Europe, luxury silverware, exquisite weapons, and imported objects from distant lands surrounded the deceased. The Byzantine bucket became another piece of evidence showing that even early medieval Britain participated in networks stretching across Europe and beyond. One remarkable feature of the bucket was discovered during careful excavation. Inside, archaeologists found cremated human remains. Rather than serving as a drinking vessel, the bucket had been reused as a funerary container. Its final purpose became deeply ceremonial. An object once carried across seas now preserved the remains of an individual laid to rest beside one of history's most famous ship burials. Its story changed completely over time. Scientific analysis has revealed details about the bucket's remarkable craftsmanship. Its bronze was shaped using techniques common within Byzantine workshops. Decorative elements reflect artistic traditions rarely seen in Northern Europe during the period. Whether it arrived through trade, diplomatic gifts, or long-distance exchange remains uncertain. Whatever its route, its presence at Sutton Hoo demonstrates that luxury objects traveled astonishing distances during the early Middle Ages. The bucket also challenges long-held ideas about the so-called Dark Ages, far from being isolated. The kingdoms of early medieval England maintained contacts with merchants, craftsmen, and rulers across Europe. Imported objects such as the Bromswell bucket reveal a world connected through trade routes that linked the North Sea to the Mediterranean. Even after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, ideas and valuable goods continued moving across continents. modern archaeological research continues uncovering new details about both the bucket and Sutton Hoo itself. Advanced conservation techniques preserve the fragile bronze surface. Scientific testing studies the metal's origin and manufacturing methods. New excavations around the cemetery continue revealing additional graves that help place the famous ship burial within a much larger royal landscape. Every discovery adds another chapter to the remarkable story of early medieval Britain. Standing in the Sutton Hoo landscape today, the great ship has long disappeared. The burial chamber lies empty. The kings who once ruled East Anglia are gone. Yet the Bromswell bucket survives as a quiet reminder that even the humblest-looking object can carry an extraordinary history. Its bronze walls witnessed empires, sea voyages, royal ceremonies, and one of archaeology's greatest discoveries. The Byzantine bucket buried beside a ship reminds us that history's greatest treasures are not always made of gold. Sometimes, a simple bronze vessel tells a far larger story. Hidden within England's most famous ship burial, the Bromswell bucket reveals a forgotten world where distant civilizations remained connected across thousands of kilometers, and where a single object could journey from the Byzantine Empire to the court of an Anglo-Saxon king before finally disappearing beneath the earth for more than 13 centuries. The Roman mural rebuilt from 400 broken pieces beneath the busy streets of modern London, where trains rumble underground and thousands of people pass each day. The remains of Roman Britain still lie hidden beneath the city. Most discoveries emerge as broken walls, fragments of pottery, or scattered coins. But during a recent excavation in Southwark, archaeologists uncovered something far more extraordinary. Hundreds of brightly painted pieces of ancient wall plaster, shattered into more than 400 fragments. At first, they looked like nothing more than broken rubble, yet piece by piece, researchers reconstructed a magnificent Roman mural that had remained buried for nearly 2,000 years. When the Romans founded the city of Londinium after AD 43, it quickly grew into one of the most important settlements in Roman Britain. Across the River Thames, Southwark developed into a thriving district filled with houses, warehouses, workshops, and wealthy residences. Many buildings were decorated with colorful wall paintings inspired by artistic styles imported from across the Roman Empire. Although most of these paintings disappeared long ago, the Southwark discovery preserved an extraordinary glimpse into everyday Roman life. The mural was uncovered during archaeological excavations beneath a modern construction site, instead of finding a complete painted wall. Researchers discovered hundreds of plaster fragments carefully buried within layers of collapsed building material. Each fragment preserved only a tiny section of color. Red, yellow, green, black, and white pigments still remained remarkably vivid despite centuries beneath the earth. At first glance, the pieces appeared impossible to reconstruct. The restoration became an archaeological puzzle unlike any other. Conservators spent months examining every fragment by hand. Edges were carefully matched together, brushstrokes aligned. Patterns gradually reappeared, slowly. The scattered pieces formed sections of an elaborate decorative mural that had once covered the interior walls of a luxurious Roman building. What had seemed like broken debris became an extraordinary work of art once again. The reconstructed mural displays elegant geometric designs, delicate floral decorations, fine architectural borders, and panels painted in vibrant colors. Some details imitate expensive marble imported from southern Europe. Others reflect artistic traditions popular in Roman cities throughout the empire. The paintings transformed an ordinary room into a display of wealth, taste, and cultural identity. Even in distant Britain, Roman fashion flourished. Archaeologists believe the mural decorated a high-status residence or public building during the 1st or 2nd century AD. Its owners likely belonged to Londinium's growing elite, imported pigments. Skilled painters and elaborate interior decoration were costly investments. The artwork demonstrated not only prosperity, but also a desire to embrace the artistic traditions of Rome itself. The discovery offers rare insight into the lives of ordinary people living within the Roman Empire. Grand temples and public monuments often survive, but the decoration inside private homes is far more easily lost. This mural reveals the colors that once filled Roman interiors, a striking contrast to the gray stone ruins we often imagine today. Ancient cities were vibrant places filled with painted walls, bright textiles, and richly decorated living spaces. Excavations surrounding the mural uncovered additional evidence of daily life: pottery, glass vessels, animal bones, coins, roof tiles, and household objects were recovered from the same layers. Together, These discoveries help archaeologists reconstruct an active neighborhood that flourished along the southern bank of the Thames nearly 2,000 years ago. The mural became one piece of a much larger story. One of the most remarkable aspects of the discovery is the survival of its colors. Although buried beneath soil for centuries, many pigments remained astonishingly bright. Scientific analysis identified minerals and natural compounds carefully selected by Roman artists. Their techniques proved so effective that the paintings survived long after the building itself had collapsed. The craftsmanship endured where the architecture did not. Modern conservation combined traditional restoration with advanced technology, high-resolution photography, digital modeling, and microscopic analysis helped researchers identify the original arrangement of the fragments. Every reconstructed section brought archaeologists closer to understanding how Roman artists decorated homes at the edge of the empire. Even today, some pieces remain unmatched, leaving small parts of the mural forever missing. Standing before the restored fresco today, it is difficult to imagine that it once existed only as hundreds of scattered fragments buried beneath London's streets. The artists are gone. The building has vanished. The people who admired these colorful walls disappeared nearly 2 millennia ago, yet their artwork survives, reassembled piece by piece, allowing modern visitors to experience a small part of everyday life in Roman Britain. The Roman mural rebuilt from 400 broken pieces reminds us that archaeology is not only about discovering ancient monuments. Sometimes, its greatest achievements come from patiently rebuilding the past one fragment at a time. Hidden beneath the streets of London, this remarkable fresco preserves the colors, craftsmanship, and quiet elegance of a Roman world that history almost reduced to dust, only to be brought back to life through extraordinary dedication and discovery. The painted temple of Tel El Farka, across the fertile fields of Egypt's Nile Delta, a low mound rises gently above the surrounding farmland. To most people, it appears unremarkable, just another ancient hill shaped by thousands of years of settlement. But beneath its surface, archaeologists uncovered traces of one of Egypt's earliest ceremonial centers, a temple whose walls were once covered with colorful paintings at the dawn of pharaonic civilization, long before the Great Pyramids, before the colossal temples of Luxor, and centuries before the Valley of the Kings. The painted temple of Tel El Farka stood as a place of worship in one of Egypt's earliest kingdoms. Tel El Farka was first settled around the 4th millennium BC, during a time when Egypt was still divided into regional communities. The Nile Delta had become a center of farming trade and growing political influence. Its location connected Upper Egypt with the Eastern Mediterranean and the Near East. Merchants, craftsmen, and travelers passed through the region, bringing new ideas that helped shape one of the world's earliest civilizations. At the heart of the settlement, archaeologists uncovered the remains of an early mud-brick temple, although only its foundations survive today. Careful excavation revealed fragments of painted plaster that once decorated the building's interior walls. These colorful remains are among the oldest known examples of painted temple decoration in Egypt. They demonstrate that sacred architecture was already becoming both artistic and symbolic long before the great stone temples appeared. The surviving fragments preserve traces of red, black, white, and yellow pigments, though incomplete. They reveal geometric designs, decorative borders, and carefully planned compositions created by skilled artisans. For archaeologists, even these small fragments are invaluable. They offer a rare glimpse into the artistic traditions of early dynastic Egypt, a period where painted walls rarely survive. The temple itself likely served as both a religious sanctuary and a center of local authority. Priests probably performed ceremonies honoring the earliest Egyptian deities. Offerings of grain, beer, livestock, and precious goods were brought before sacred altars. Religion and government were closely connected. The temple became not only a place of worship, but also a symbol of emerging political power. Excavations throughout Tel El Farka have uncovered remarkable discoveries beyond the temple. Large administrative buildings, storage facilities, workshops, ceramic vessels, copper tools, stone mace heads, and beautifully carved figurines have all emerged from the site. Perhaps the most famous discoveries are a collection of gold figurines, among the earliest gold objects ever found in Egypt. Together, these finds reveal a prosperous settlement long before the construction of the pyramids. One of Tel El Farka's greatest strengths was its strategic location. Situated within the fertile Nile Delta, the settlement controlled important trade routes linking Egypt with the Sinai Peninsula and the Levant. Imported pottery, luxury goods, and exotic materials recovered during excavation demonstrate that international trade flourished here more than 5,000 years ago. The community played an important role in Egypt's earliest economic networks. As Egypt gradually unified under its first pharaohs, political authority became increasingly centralized. New royal capitals emerged farther south. Over time, Tel El Farqa lost much of its importance. The temple was abandoned. Buildings collapsed. Wind-blown soil slowly buried the settlement beneath the delta landscape. For thousands of years, its painted walls remained hidden beneath layers of earth. Modern archaeological excavations have transformed Tel El Farqa into one of Egypt's most important prehistoric sites. Researchers continue uncovering additional temples, elite residences, workshops, and cemeteries. Scientific analysis of pigments, architecture, and imported artifacts helps reconstruct life during the earliest stages of Egyptian civilization. Each excavation season reveals another chapter of a world that existed before the age of the pharaohs reached its height. Standing at Tel El Farqa today, the painted walls have almost disappeared. The temple no longer echoes with prayers. The priests who once served here are long forgotten. Yet beneath the quiet fields of the Nile Delta, the foundations remain, preserving the story of one of Egypt's earliest sacred places, a sanctuary where art, religion, and political power first began to grow together. The painted temple of Tel El Farqa reminds us that the roots of ancient Egypt were established long before its most famous monuments were built. Hidden beneath the fertile plains of the Nile Delta, its painted sanctuary, early temples, and remarkable archaeological discoveries preserve the story of a civilization taking its very first steps toward becoming one of the greatest cultures the world has ever known. The 9,000-year-old village still sitting under the sea, beneath the clear blue waters of Israel's Mediterranean coast, just a few hundred meters from the shoreline. An entire prehistoric village still rests on the seabed. Stone houses remain where families once lived. Ancient wells still mark the center of the settlement. Massive standing stones rise silently beneath the waves. Even the graves of its former inhabitants remain undisturbed. For nearly 9,000 years, the sea has protected this remarkable place from the modern world. Known today as Atlit Yam, it is one of the oldest and best preserved submerged villages ever discovered. Atlit Yam was built around 7000 BC, during the Neolithic period, thousands of years before the pyramids of Egypt. Stonehenge, or the first cities of Mesopotamia. Its people were among the earliest farming communities along the eastern Mediterranean. They cultivated crops, raised domesticated animals, caught fish from the nearby coast, and built permanent homes using carefully arranged stone foundations. The village represented a new way of life, one based on settled communities rather than constant movement. The settlement originally stood beside the ancient shoreline. Freshwater springs supplied drinking water. Fertile land supported agriculture. The nearby sea provided abundant fish and shellfish. Everything the community needed lay within easy reach. For centuries, Atlit Yem prospered as families built homes, raised children, and carried out ceremonies beside the coast. Then, the sea slowly began to reclaim the land. Archaeologists believe rising sea levels gradually flooded the village as the last ice age came to an end. As enormous glaciers melted across the world, the Mediterranean expanded inland, slowly covering the settlement. Rather than being destroyed by a sudden catastrophe, Atlit Yam appears to have disappeared beneath the water over generations. Families likely watched the shoreline creep closer each year, until they finally abandoned their homes forever. One of the site's most remarkable discoveries is a circle of 7 massive standing stones, arranged around a natural freshwater spring. The monument is believed to have served an important ceremonial purpose. Some of the stones weigh hundreds of kilograms. Their careful placement suggests the community gathered here for rituals connected with water, fertility, or seasonal celebrations. Even beneath the sea, the monument remains standing exactly where it was erected 9,000 years ago. Excavations have revealed an astonishingly well-preserved village. Stone-built houses still outline ancient streets. Storage areas remain visible. Fireplaces, workspaces, and household floors can still be identified beneath the sand. Researchers have even discovered wooden remains, plant material, animal bones, and fishing equipment rarely preserved at sites of this age. The sea created a unique archaeological time capsule. The settlement also provides valuable insight into prehistoric medicine. Among the human burials, archaeologists discovered the skeleton of a woman embracing a young child. Scientific analysis revealed that both suffered from tuberculosis, making them among the earliest known cases of the disease ever identified. The discovery has helped researchers understand how infectious illnesses spread among some of humanity's first permanent farming communities. Life at Atlit Yam revolved around both land and sea. Excavations have uncovered fish hooks, harpoons, grinding stones, flint tools, animal remains, and evidence of cultivated wheat and barley. Its inhabitants combined agriculture with fishing, creating a balanced economy that supported a growing population. The village reflects a society adapting successfully to a changing world. Modern underwater archaeology has transformed our understanding of Atlit Yam. Divers carefully document every structure using underwater photography, three-dimensional mapping, and digital scanning. Because the village lies beneath only a few meters of water, researchers can study its buildings with remarkable precision. Each expedition reveals new details hidden beneath shifting layers of sand. Even today, large portions of the settlement remain unexplored. Swimming above Atlit Yam today, the silence is almost surreal. Fish weave through ancient walls. Seagrass covers stone pathways once walked by farmers. Sunlight filters through the water onto houses abandoned thousands of years before written history began. The village has not vanished. It has simply become part of the sea. The 9,000-year-old village still sitting under the sea reminds us that some of humanity's oldest settlements have not been destroyed by time, but preserved beneath the ocean itself, hidden beneath the Mediterranean waters. Atlit Yam's stone homes, sacred monument, ancient burials, and remarkable archaeological discoveries preserve the story of one of the world's earliest farming communities, a civilization that watched the sea slowly rise until it became their final resting place. The caves polished like glass 2,300 years ago. Hidden within the granite hills of eastern India, a series of ancient caves reflects light in a way that seems almost impossible. Their walls are so perfectly smooth, so brilliantly polished, that they resemble sheets of dark glass rather than solid rock. Even after more than 2,000 years, visitors can still see their own reflections shimmering across the stone. No modern machinery carved these chambers. No metal drills shaped their walls, yet somehow, around 2,300 years ago, ancient craftsmen transformed some of the hardest granite on Earth into mirror-like interiors that continue to puzzle archaeologists today. These are the Barabar Caves, among the oldest surviving rock-cut caves in India. The Barabar Caves were created during the 3rd century BC, at the height of the Mauryan Empire. Many of them were commissioned by Emperor Ashoka, one of the most influential rulers in Indian history. After embracing Buddhism following the devastating Kalinga War, Ashoka sponsored temples, monasteries, roads, and monuments across his vast empire. The caves, however, were not originally built for Buddhists. Instead, several were dedicated to the Ajivikas, an ancient religious order that has almost completely disappeared from history, carved directly into massive granite outcrops. The caves display extraordinary precision. Each chamber features perfectly straight walls, smooth curved ceilings, and carefully planned proportions. But their most remarkable feature is the famous Mauryan polish. The granite surfaces were finished so flawlessly that they still shine after more than 23 centuries. Even modern stoneworkers admire the level of craftsmanship achieved using ancient tools. Exactly how this finish was produced remains a subject of continuing research. The interiors are surprisingly simple. Most caves consist of a rectangular entrance chamber connected to a circular inner room. Unlike later temples, there are no elaborate sculptures, no painted walls, and very little decoration. The beauty lies entirely in the precision of the architecture. Every surface appears deliberate, every curve perfectly balanced. The emptiness itself became part of the sacred experience. One unexpected feature of the caves is their remarkable acoustics. Even a quiet whisper echoes throughout the polished chambers. A single chant can fill the entire interior with deep, lingering resonance. Researchers believe these acoustic effects may have played an important role during religious ceremonies, meditation, prayer, and sacred recitations would have sounded dramatically different within these carefully designed spaces. The architecture shaped not only what worshippers saw, but also what they heard. Several cave entrances preserve inscriptions left by Emperor Ashoka himself. Written in ancient Brahmi script, these inscriptions record the emperor's dedication of the caves to the Ajivika monks. They are among the earliest surviving royal inscriptions in India. For archaeologists, they provide rare historical evidence linking the monument directly to one of the ancient world's greatest rulers. The words carved into the stone have survived almost as long as the caves themselves. The Barabar caves also influenced generations of architects. Centuries later, many of India's magnificent Buddhist rock-cut temples borrowed ideas first developed here. The arched entrances, excavated interiors, and carefully planned layouts became models for later cave complexes across the Indian subcontinent. Although simple in appearance, the Barabar caves marked the beginning of an architectural tradition that would flourish for hundreds of years. Excavations around the site have uncovered pottery, stone tools, fragments of ancient pathways, and evidence of continued occupation long after the Mauryan Empire declined. Pilgrims continued visiting the caves for centuries. Different religious communities adopted them over time, adding new layers to their remarkable history. Despite changing beliefs, the caves themselves remained largely untouched. Modern archaeological studies continue examining the mystery of the polished granite. Laser scanning reveals surfaces so smooth that they rival modern finishing techniques. Geologists study ancient tool marks, searching for clues about how the craftsmen achieved such remarkable results. Despite decades of research, no complete explanation has been universally accepted. The caves continue to challenge assumptions about ancient engineering and craftsmanship. Standing inside the Barabar caves today, the polished walls still reflect the light. The echoes still linger in the silence. The monks who once meditated here disappeared long ago. The empire that built these chambers has faded into history. Yet the granite remains exactly as ancient craftsmen left it, a masterpiece of patience, skill, and extraordinary precision. The caves, polished like glass 2,300 years ago, remind us that some of history's greatest achievements are not towering monuments visible from afar, but quiet spaces carved deep within stone, hidden among the hills of Bihar. The Barabar caves preserve the remarkable story of ancient builders who transformed solid granite into mirror-like sanctuaries, creating one of the most astonishing engineering accomplishments of the ancient world. The 45,000-year-old painting, the oldest story ever told, hidden behind towering limestone cliffs, deep within the tropical forests of Indonesia's Sulawesi island. A small cave preserves one of humanity's greatest treasures. There are no golden artifacts, no stone temples, no ancient cities, only a faded image painted high upon a cave wall. Yet this simple artwork has rewritten the story of human creativity. Created nearly 45,000 years ago, it is among the oldest known examples of figurative art ever discovered, a window into the imagination of people who lived during the Ice Age. The cave is known as Liang Tadonga, one of hundreds of limestone caves scattered across southern Sulawesi. For thousands of years, the surrounding landscape remained isolated by rugged mountains and dense forest. Many caves could only be reached by crossing rivers and climbing steep cliffs. Their remote location helped preserve paintings that survived long after countless others disappeared around the world. The most famous artwork inside the cave depicts a large wild pig, painted in rich red pigment. The animal stands in profile with remarkable confidence and detail. Its powerful body, distinctive facial features, and carefully drawn outline reveal the work of an artist with extraordinary skill. Nearby, several hand stencils appear beside the animal, created by placing hands against the rock and blowing pigment across the surface. Those hands belong to people who lived tens of thousands of years before written history began. Scientists determined the painting's incredible age by studying tiny mineral deposits that form naturally over its surface. Using uranium series dating, researchers concluded that the artwork is at least 45,000 years old. The painting itself may be even older. This discovery pushed back the timeline of figurative art, showing that humans were creating sophisticated images far earlier than once believed. The wild pig was no ordinary subject. Known today as the Sulawesi warty pig, it was one of the island's most important animals. Ancient hunters relied upon it for survival. Its repeated appearance in cave art suggests it also held symbolic or spiritual importance. Some archaeologists believe these paintings represented successful hunts. Others suggest they reflected myths, ceremonies, or stories shared between generations. No one can know for certain, but the artwork clearly carried meaning far beyond simple decoration. Layang Tadongenj is only one part of a much larger artistic landscape. Across Sulawesi, researchers have discovered dozens of caves containing ancient paintings of animals, human figures, and mysterious scenes involving multiple characters. Some appear to portray hunting expeditions, others may represent early storytelling through images. Together, they reveal a surprisingly rich artistic tradition flourishing during the Ice Age. Excavations around these caves have uncovered stone tools, animal bones, shell ornaments, and evidence of repeated human occupation. The artists who painted these walls were not wandering aimlessly across the landscape. They belonged to organized communities that understood their environment, hunted successfully, and expressed complex ideas through art. Their creativity was every bit as remarkable as their survival. One of the greatest challenges facing archaeologists today is preserving these extraordinary paintings. Changes in temperature, humidity, and salt crystals forming within the limestone have begun damaging sections of the cave walls. Some paintings have already deteriorated significantly over recent decades. Researchers are working urgently to document every image using high-resolution photography. three-dimensional scanning, and digital reconstruction before more details are lost. Forever. The discovery of Liang Tadongaj has transformed our understanding of early human history. For generations, many scholars believed Europe's Ice Age caves represented the birthplace of figurative art. The Sulawesi paintings revealed a different story. Human creativity was flourishing in multiple regions of the world at roughly the same time. The desire to create images, share stories, and leave lasting memories appears to be one of humanity's oldest traditions. Standing inside the cave today, the painting is surprisingly modest. There are no grand murals stretching across the walls, only a single ancient animal, quietly watching from the rock where an unknown artist painted it 45,000 years ago. The artist's name has vanished. Their language has disappeared, yet their message remains. A simple image, still reaching across thousands of generations. The 45,000-year-old painting, the oldest story ever told, reminds us that the earliest chapters of human history were not written with words, but painted onto stone. Hidden within the caves of Sulawesi, the ancient image of a wild pig, the mysterious hand stencils, and the remarkable artistry of Ice Age people preserve one of humanity's oldest surviving stories. A story that continues to inspire wonder nearly 45,000 years after it was first painted. The ancient tracks that run straight into the sea, across the rocky landscape of Malta. Deep grooves carved into solid limestone crisscross the island in every direction. Some run side by side for hundreds of meters, others suddenly split apart, cross one another, or simply disappear beneath the earth. The strangest of all continue toward the coastline, before vanishing beneath the Mediterranean Sea. Who carved these mysterious tracks? What were they used for? And why do some lead directly into the water? For more than a century, the cart ruts of Malta have remained one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries. The cart ruts are found across both Malta and the neighboring island of Gozo. Hundreds of parallel grooves have been recorded, often cut between 10 and 20 centimeters deep into the soft limestone. Their spacing is remarkably consistent, suggesting they were created by repeated movement along fixed routes, yet no written record explains when they were made, or who first carved them into the landscape. Many of the ruts appear near some of Malta's most famous prehistoric temples. Sites such as Agar Kim, Najdra, and Misra Gar Ilgbir all lie close to extensive networks of tracks. Because of this, some archaeologists believe the ruts may date back thousands of years, perhaps even to the period when Malta's great megalithic temples were being constructed. If true, they would belong to one of Europe's oldest engineering landscapes. One of the greatest mysteries is the incredible complexity of the network. The tracks do not simply travel from one place to another. Some intersect like railway junctions. Others suddenly become steeper before climbing hillsides. Several end abruptly at cliff edges. Many overlap older grooves, suggesting they were used repeatedly over long periods of time. No single explanation has successfully accounted for every pattern. The most widely discussed theory is that the ruts were created by heavy wooden carts carrying massive stone blocks. Repeated journeys with heavily loaded vehicles may have gradually worn channels into the limestone, since Malta's prehistoric temples contain enormous limestone blocks weighing several tons. The idea seems reasonable, yet no surviving prehistoric cart matching the width of the grooves has ever been discovered. The evidence remains incomplete. Another possibility is that the grooves guided sledges rather than wheeled vehicles. Large stone blocks may have been dragged across lubricated wooden runners, following established routes between quarries and construction sites. Others suggest the tracks formed part of an ancient transport system used for agriculture, trade, or ceremonial processions. Each theory explains part of the mystery, but none explains every feature. The most puzzling cart ruts continue beneath the sea. Marine archaeologists have documented several tracks extending directly from the coastline onto the submerged seabed. Some disappear beneath waters more than 30 meters deep. If these grooves were carved before sea levels rose after the last ice age, they could be far older than many researchers once believed. Others argue they may simply reflect ancient shorelines now submerged by gradual changes in sea level. The debate continues. Excavations around several rut systems have uncovered pottery, stone tools, and evidence of prehistoric occupation. However, very few artifacts have been found directly inside the grooves themselves. Without datable material, determining their exact age remains extremely difficult. The tracks reveal remarkable human activity, but refuse to reveal precisely when that activity occurred. Modern technology has opened new possibilities. Drone photography, satellite mapping, three-dimensional laser scanning, and underwater surveys have documented hundreds of previously unknown sections of the network. Researchers can now study how the ruts connect with quarries, ancient settlements, and megalithic temples across the islands. Each new survey adds detail, yet the larger mystery remains unsolved. Walking beside the cart ruts today, the grooves seem almost unnatural. They cut silently across fields, disappear beneath roads, climb rocky slopes, and continue toward the sea without explanation. The builders are forgotten. The vehicles are gone. Even their purpose has faded into history. Yet the tracks remain exactly where ancient hands first shaped them, waiting for someone to finally understand their story. The ancient tracks that run straight into the sea remind us that not every archaeological mystery comes in the form of buried temples or forgotten cities. Sometimes, the greatest puzzles are carved directly into the landscape itself, hidden across the islands of Malta. These remarkable stone tracks, submerged pathways, and mysterious engineering works preserve one of the Mediterranean's oldest unanswered questions. A silent network whose destination may be known, but whose true purpose still remains lost to time. The million-year-old fireplace that changed everything. On the edge of South Africa's Kalahari Desert, a vast cave opens beneath a rocky hillside. From the outside, it appears quiet and unremarkable, but deep inside, beneath layers of ancient sediment, archaeologists uncovered evidence of a discovery that changed the story of humanity forever. Not a palace, not a temple, not a forgotten city, but something far more important: the remains of a fire, burned nearly 1 million years ago. If the evidence is correct, Wonderwork Cave preserves one of the earliest known examples of humans deliberately controlling fire, a discovery that transformed our understanding of what our ancient ancestors were capable of. Wonderwork Cave stretches more than 140 meters into the hillside. Unlike many prehistoric caves, its entrance opens onto a broad plain that has attracted animals and humans for millions of years. Generation after generation return to this shelter, leaving behind layer upon layer of stone tools, animal bones, ash, and traces of daily life. Together, these deposits preserve one of the longest continuous archaeological records anywhere in the world. The cave's name means miracle cave in Afrikaans. For archaeologists, the name seems remarkably appropriate. Excavations have revealed evidence of human occupation stretching back almost 2 million years. Stone tools belonging to some of humanity's earliest ancestors lie buried deep within its ancient sediments. Very few sites anywhere on Earth preserve such an extraordinary record of early human history. The discovery that attracted worldwide attention came from deposits nearly 30 meters inside the cave. Researchers found tiny fragments of burned bone, charred plant remains, and microscopic ash scattered throughout the sediment. Importantly, these materials were found deep inside the cave, far beyond the reach of natural grass fires burning outside. The evidence suggested something extraordinary. The fire had been created, or at least carefully maintained by ancient humans themselves. Dating techniques placed these burned remains at approximately 1 million years old. At the time, the discovery pushed back some of the earliest convincing evidence for the controlled use of fire. Scientists believe the inhabitants may have been Homo erectus, a human ancestor already known for making stone tools and traveling across large parts of Africa and Eurasia. If so, these early humans had mastered one of history's greatest technological breakthroughs. The ability to control fire transformed human life in countless ways. It provided warmth during cold nights, protection from dangerous animals, light after sunset, and perhaps most importantly, the ability to cook food. Cooking made many plants and meats easier to digest, allowing early humans to obtain more energy from their meals. Some researchers believe this development even contributed to changes in the growth of the human brain over thousands of generations. Excavations throughout Wonderwork Cave have uncovered thousands of stone tools, animal bones, hammerstones, and evidence of repeated occupation. The cave was not used only once. It remained an important shelter for hundreds of thousands of years. Different human species returned again and again, each leaving behind another chapter of our shared history. The cave became a living archive of human evolution. One remarkable aspect of Wonderwork is the excellent preservation of its archaeological layers. Because the cave remained sheltered from wind and rain, ancient deposits accumulated slowly without being heavily disturbed. Each layer records a different moment in prehistory. By carefully excavating these sediments, researchers can reconstruct changes in technology, climate, animal, life, and human behavior across immense stretches of time. Few places offer such a complete timeline. Modern science continues revealing new details from the cave, Microscopic analysis identifies tiny particles of ash invisible to the naked eye, magnetic dating, chemical studies, and high-resolution sediment analysis help determine exactly when different occupations occurred. Every new technique uncovers another piece of evidence hidden within sediments laid down hundreds of thousands of years ago. Wonderwork continues teaching us something new, standing inside the cave today. The ancient fireplaces have long gone cold. The people who gathered around them vanished nearly 1 million years ago. No voices remain. No names survive. Yet beneath your feet, the ashes still rest where they fell. Silent proof of a moment that forever changed the human story. A simple fire, burning inside a cave, that helped shape the future of our species. The 1 million-year-old fireplace that changed everything reminds us that humanity's greatest discoveries were not always made by kings or great civilizations. Sometimes, they began with a single controlled flame, hidden within Wonderwork Cave. Ancient ashes, stone tools, and remarkable archaeological evidence preserve one of the earliest chapters in humanity's journey. The moment when our ancestors learned not simply to fear fire, but to master it. The giant monastery that inspired Angkor Wat, across the green plains of northwestern Bangladesh. A vast square of ancient brick rises quietly above the countryside. From ground level, it looks like little more than a series of weathered ruins. But from above, its true scale becomes astonishing, perfectly symmetrical, surrounded by hundreds of monks' cells, centered around a monumental temple unlike anything else built in South Asia at the time. More than 1,200 years ago, this was one of the greatest Buddhist monasteries in the world, a place where thousands of monks lived, studied, and welcomed scholars from across Asia. Today it is known as Somapura Mahavihara, a masterpiece whose remarkable design may have influenced some of Asia's greatest temples, including the magnificent monuments of Angkor. Somapura Mahavihara was founded during the late 8th century AD by the Pala Emperor Dharmapala. The Pala dynasty ruled much of eastern India and present-day Bangladesh during a period when Buddhism flourished across the region. The emperors became great patrons of education, religion, and monumental architecture. Rather than constructing only a place of worship, Dharmapala envisioned an enormous center of learning that would attract students and monks from across the Buddhist world. The monastery was built on an extraordinary scale. A massive square enclosure stretched nearly 300 meters on each side. Along its 4 walls, more than 170 monks' cells surrounded a vast central courtyard. Each small chamber served as both a living space and a place for study and meditation. The carefully planned layout created an organized community where daily life revolved around scholarship, prayer, and teaching. At the center of the complex stood its most remarkable structure, a towering cruciform temple built upon a massive brick platform. Although much of the upper monument has disappeared, archaeologists believe it once rose several stories above the surrounding monastery. Its unique design combined terraces, stairways, shrines, and processional pathways into a single monumental structure. Unlike earlier Buddhist monuments, the temple became the visual heart of the entire complex. The walls of Somapura were richly decorated. Thousands of beautifully crafted terracotta plaques lined the exterior of the temple. These plaques depicted Buddhist symbols, musicians, animals, mythical creatures, dancers, and scenes from everyday life. Together, they created one of the finest surviving collections of medieval terracotta art in South Asia. Even today, their remarkable craftsmanship continues to impress archaeologists and historians alike. Somapura was far more than a monastery. It became one of the greatest universities of the Buddhist world. Monks traveled here from regions that now include India, Nepal, Tibet, Myanmar, and Southeast Asia. Philosophy, medicine, astronomy, logic, grammar, and Buddhist scriptures were studied within its walls. The monastery became an international center where knowledge crossed borders long before the modern university existed. Its influence extended far beyond Bengal. Architectural historians have noted striking similarities between Somapura's central temple and later monuments built across Southeast Asia. Elements of its cruciform plan, stepped terraces, and monumental symmetry appear in Buddhist and Hindu temples constructed centuries later. Although architectural ideas traveled through many regions, many scholars believe Somapura played an important role in shaping the development of sacred architecture that eventually reached places such as Angkor in Cambodia. Its influence spread through ideas rather than conquest. Excavations have uncovered remarkable discoveries throughout the monastery. Bronze statues, stone sculptures, clay seals, ceramic vessels, coins, writing tablets, and beautifully carved architectural fragments all reveal a thriving intellectual community. Evidence of workshops suggests monks copied manuscripts, created artworks, and produced ceremonial objects within the monastery itself. It was both a spiritual sanctuary and a center of artistic creation. By the 12th century, political change gradually transformed the region. Royal patronage declined. New religious traditions gained influence. Repeated invasions and centuries of neglect left much of the monastery abandoned. Its towering temple slowly collapsed. Wind, rain, and vegetation buried the once great university beneath layers of earth. For hundreds of years, the ruins slept beneath the fields. Modern archaeology has restored Somapura to its rightful place in history. Excavations have revealed the monastery's complete layout, its remarkable drainage systems, decorative artwork, and sophisticated urban planning. Digital reconstruction continues helping researchers understand how the central temple once appeared, even after decades of excavation. Parts of the complex remain unexplored beneath the surrounding landscape. Walking through Somapura today, the chanting has faded, the classrooms stand empty, the monks who once welcomed students from across Asia are long gone, yet the brick foundations still preserve the outline of one of the ancient world's greatest centers of learning. A place where architecture, knowledge, and faith came together on an extraordinary scale. The giant monastery that inspired Angkor Wat reminds us that some of history's most influential monuments are not remembered because of conquest, but because of the ideas they shared with the world. Hidden beneath the plains of Bangladesh, Somapura Mahavihara preserves the remarkable story of a monastery where scholarship flourished, art reached extraordinary heights, and architectural innovations echoed across Asia for centuries to come. The money so heavy it never moved. On a small island in the western Pacific, scattered among villages, beneath towering trees, and beside quiet footpaths, stand enormous circles of carved limestone. Some are taller than a person, others weigh several tons. At first glance, they look like ancient monuments. But they were never temples, they were never tombs, they were money, for centuries. The people of Yap built one of the most unusual economic systems in human history. Their currency became so massive that many of the largest pieces never moved at all. Ownership changed, but the stone remained exactly where it stood. The island of Yap lies within present-day Micronesia, more than 1,000 kilometers from the nearest limestone quarries. Ironically, the island itself contains almost no suitable stone for creating its famous currency. Instead, the people of Yap sailed hundreds of kilometers across the open Pacific to the islands of Palau, where they quarried enormous disks of limestone before transporting them home by canoe and raft. The journey itself became part of each stone's value. These remarkable objects are known as rai stones. Each consists of a carefully carved limestone disc with a hole through its center. Smaller examples measure only a few centimeters across. The largest exceed 3 meters in diameter and weigh more than 4 tons. Wooden poles could be passed through the central hole, allowing groups of people to carry the smaller stones. The largest, however, were simply too heavy to move. The true value of a rai stone was never determined by its size alone. Its history mattered just as much. A stone carried safely across dangerous seas by skilled navigators was considered more valuable than one obtained with little effort. If sailors died while transporting a particular stone, its worth could increase even further. The value came not only from the object itself, but from the story attached to it. Every rai stone carried its own history. Perhaps the most remarkable feature of Yap's economy was that ownership did not require physical possession. When one person transferred a large rai stone to another, the stone often remained exactly where it had always stood. Everyone within the community simply recognized that it now belonged to someone else. There was no need to move it. Knowledge, memory, and shared trust became the foundation of the island's financial system. Anthropologists often compare the rai stones to modern banking. Today, money usually exists as numbers stored in computers. Ownership changes without physical objects moving from place to place. The people of Yayap developed a remarkably similar idea centuries earlier. The community remembered who owned each stone, creating a system based entirely upon collective agreement. In many ways, the stones functioned as one of history's earliest forms of recorded wealth. Obtaining a rai stone demanded extraordinary skill. Sailors crossed unpredictable seas using traditional navigation techniques, without compasses. They relied upon stars, ocean swells, birds, and generations of inherited knowledge. Many voyages ended successfully. Others ended in tragedy, Every successful expedition strengthened Yap's reputation as one of the Pacific's greatest maritime societies. European visitors first encountered the Rye stones during the 18th and 19th centuries. They were astonished to discover entire villages using gigantic stone discs as currency. To outsiders, the system seemed impossible to understand, yet within Yap, it functioned remarkably well. Trade, marriage agreements, political alliances, and important ceremonies all relied upon the transfer of stone wealth recognized by the community. Modern archaeologists and historians continue studying the Rye stones as both cultural treasures and economic artifacts. Research has traced many quarries back to Palau, reconstructing the ancient trade routes that connected distant Pacific islands. Some stones still stand in the same locations where they were placed centuries ago. Others preserve oral histories passed down through countless generations. Together, they reveal a sophisticated society built upon cooperation, navigation, and mutual trust. Walking through Yap today, many Rye stones still rest quietly beneath tropical trees. Children play beside them. Villagers pass them every day. Most have not moved for generations. Yet each one still carries a story, a voyage, and a history remembered by the people who continue to protect this remarkable tradition. Their value has never depended on movement, only on memory. The money so heavy it never moved reminds us that wealth has never been defined by gold or paper alone. Sometimes, its greatest value comes from trust. Hidden among the islands of Micronesia, the remarkable Rye stones preserve the story of a civilization that transformed massive blocks of limestone into one of the world's most extraordinary forms of currency, proving that the strongest economies are often built not on objects, but on the shared belief of an entire community. The circular pyramid swallowed by a lava flow. In the southern reaches of Mexico City, hidden beneath modern neighborhoods and busy roads, lies the remains of a civilization almost erased by fire. At its heart stands an unusual monument. Not a square pyramid like those of the Maya, nor the towering temples of the Aztecs. Instead, it is perfectly circular. One of the oldest monumental pyramids in Mesoamerica. More than 2,000 years ago, a catastrophic volcanic eruption buried much of the surrounding city beneath rivers of black lava, freezing an entire civilization in time. This is Cuiculco, a forgotten city whose remarkable pyramid survived one of nature's most devastating disasters. Cuiculco began to flourish around 800 BC, long before Teotihuacan dominated central Mexico. Situated near the fertile shores of ancient Lake Texcoco, the settlement grew into one of the region's earliest urban centers. Its rich farmland supported thousands of people. Trade routes connected it with neighboring communities, while its ceremonial buildings reflected a society becoming increasingly organized and prosperous. For centuries, Cuicuilco stood among the most important cities of ancient Mexico. The city's most famous structure is its remarkable circular pyramid. Unlike the stepped rectangular pyramids built by later civilizations, this monument was constructed as a series of broad concentric terraces rising toward a central platform. Measuring more than 100 meters across, it remains one of the earliest monumental pyramids ever built in the Americas. Its unusual design continues to fascinate archaeologists. Some believe the circular shape carried symbolic or astronomical significance, though its exact meaning remains uncertain. Surrounding the pyramid, excavations have uncovered plazas, residential buildings, ceremonial platforms, and sophisticated drainage systems. Stone foundations reveal carefully planned neighborhoods, while evidence of irrigation suggests that agriculture played a vital role in the city's prosperity. Cuiculco was far more than a religious center. It was a thriving urban community where thousands of people lived, worked, and worshipped. One of the greatest mysteries surrounding Cuiculco is the purpose of its circular architecture. Most later Mesoamerican pyramids followed rectangular designs aligned with cardinal directions. The builders of Cuiculco chose a completely different approach. Some researchers believe the monument was linked to solar observations, seasonal ceremonies, or rituals connected with the surrounding volcanic landscape, without written records. Its original symbolism has been lost. Then, sometime between the 1st century BC and the 1st century AD, disaster struck. The nearby Jidal volcano erupted with extraordinary force. Molten lava poured across the surrounding countryside, destroying fields, homes, roads, and ceremonial buildings. Unlike earthquakes or gradual decline, the eruption arrived with devastating speed. Entire sections of the city disappeared beneath thick layers of hardened volcanic rock. Many inhabitants fled, never to return. Ironically, the same lava that destroyed Cuiculco also helped preserve it. The volcanic rock sealed ancient structures beneath its surface, protecting them from later construction and erosion. When archaeologists finally began excavating the site in the 20th century, they uncovered foundations, stone monuments, ceramic vessels, figurines, and evidence of a sophisticated society frozen beneath the lava. The catastrophe became an archaeological time capsule. Many historians believe the destruction of Cuicuilco changed the course of Mesoamerican history. As survivors abandoned the devastated city, some likely migrated northward into the Valley of Mexico. Around the same period, the nearby city of Teotihuacan began its remarkable rise, although the relationship remains debated. Some archaeologists suggest the fall of Cuicuilco helped create the conditions for Teotihuacan to become one of the greatest cities of the ancient Americas. Modern excavations continue revealing new details hidden beneath the volcanic landscape. Ground-penetrating radar, three-dimensional mapping, and careful excavation have identified additional structures buried beneath hardened lava flows. Researchers continue studying how the city was organized, how its people responded to the eruption, and how one natural disaster reshaped an entire civilization. Much of Cuicuilco still remains hidden beneath the modern city. Standing beside the circular pyramid today, it is difficult to imagine the thriving metropolis that once surrounded it. The markets are silent. The temples no longer echo with ceremonies. The volcano that transformed the landscape has long since fallen quiet. Yet the ancient pyramid still rises above the lava, a lasting reminder of a civilization that survived history's most destructive forces. The circular pyramid swallowed by a lava flow reminds us that some of archaeology's greatest discoveries exist because of the very disasters that destroyed them. Hidden beneath the volcanic stone of central Mexico, Cuicuilco's remarkable pyramid, ancient neighborhoods, and buried ceremonial center preserve the story of a forgotten civilization whose legacy endured long after rivers of lava changed the landscape forever. The Copper Temple of Timna. In the heart of Israel's southern desert, where towering sandstone cliffs rise above endless red valleys, ancient miners once carved deep into the earth in search of one precious metal, copper. For thousands of years, the Timna Valley echoed with the sound of stone hammers, furnaces, and blazing fires that transformed rock into metal. But among the mines, archaeologists uncovered something unexpected. Not another workshop, not another smelting furnace, but the remains of a sacred temple. A place where miners paused their work, made offerings to their gods, and sought protection before descending into one of the ancient world's greatest copper-producing landscapes. The Timna Valley has attracted people for more than 6,000 years. Rich copper ore lies close to the surface, making the region one of the earliest large-scale mining centers ever known, long before the Iron Age. Communities were extracting copper here using surprisingly sophisticated techniques. Generation after generation returned to the valley, leaving behind thousands of mine shafts, smelting camps, and ceremonial sites scattered across the desert. One of the valley's most remarkable discoveries stands beneath a dramatic sandstone cliff known today as Solomon's Pillars. Despite the name, the towering rock formations have no direct connection to the biblical king. Instead, archaeologists uncovered a small temple built during the Late Bronze Age, dedicated to the Egyptian goddess Hathor. She was revered as the protector of miners, the Lady of Turquoise, and a guardian of distant desert expeditions. For those working in the dangerous copper mines, her protection was essential. The temple was carefully constructed against the towering cliffs, its walls enclosed an open courtyard, an altar, storage rooms, and a sacred chamber where offerings were presented, unlike the enormous temples along the Nile. This was a remote sanctuary built for workers living far from Egypt's great cities. Yet even here, religious traditions remained remarkably elaborate. The desert itself became part of the temple's sacred setting. Excavations uncovered an extraordinary collection of artifacts. Fragments of painted pottery, stone altars, bronze tools, decorative beads, scarabs, amulets, and small Egyptian statues all emerged from the sand. Among the most remarkable discoveries were beautifully carved votive offerings dedicated to Hathor, left behind by miners seeking divine protection before entering the dangerous underground workings. The temple also reveals the close relationship between religion and industry. Copper was one of the ancient world's most valuable resources. It was used to create weapons, tools, jewelry, and ceremonial objects traded across the Near East. Mining was difficult and often dangerous. By honoring Hathor, workers believed they could ensure both safety and success. The temple became an essential part of daily life within the mining community. Around the 12th century BC, the region experienced dramatic political change. Egyptian control gradually weakened. The temple itself was transformed, instead of abandoning the sanctuary. New groups adapted it for their own beliefs. Archaeologists discovered evidence that Midianite peoples reused the sacred space, removing Egyptian symbols while continuing many of the site's ceremonial traditions. The temple changed, but its sacred importance endured. Beyond the sanctuary, the Timna Valley preserves thousands of ancient mining features. Deep shafts descend into the sandstone. Stone hammers lie abandoned where miners left them. Smelting furnaces, slag heaps, and charcoal remains reveal a highly organized industry operating across the desert. Scientific studies suggest that copper production here continued for centuries, supplying metal to civilizations throughout the ancient Near East. Modern archaeology has transformed Timna into one of the world's most important ancient mining landscapes. Researchers continue excavating workshops, mining camps, and ceremonial areas using advanced dating techniques, microscopic residue analysis, and drone mapping. Every excavation reveals new details about the people who lived and worked in one of history's earliest industrial centers. Many parts of the valley still remain unexplored, standing beside the Temple of Hathor today. The furnaces have long grown cold, the miners have vanished. The prayers once spoken beneath the cliffs have fallen silent. Yet the sandstone pillars still rise above the valley, watching over the temple exactly as they did more than 3,000 years ago. The desert has preserved not only the mines, but also the beliefs of the people whose lives depended upon them. The Copper Temple of Timna reminds us that the world's earliest industries were built not only upon technology, but also upon faith. Hidden within Israel's Red Desert, the Temple of Hathor, ancient copper mines, and remarkable archaeological discoveries preserve the story of a civilization that sought both metal from the earth and protection from the gods, in one of the ancient world's most extraordinary mining landscapes. The temple district of Sirkap, along the ancient trade routes of northwestern Pakistan, where merchants once carried silk, spices, gold, and precious stones between east and west, the ruins of an extraordinary city still lie beneath the open sky. Its streets were laid out with remarkable precision. Its temples stood side by side despite belonging to different religions. Greek columns, Buddhist shrines, Hindu sanctuaries, and Persian influences all existed within the same city walls. This was Sirkap, one of the most remarkable crossroads of civilizations in the ancient world. Today, its temple district reveals a forgotten chapter of history where cultures from across Asia and the Mediterranean met in a single thriving city. Sirkap formed part of the ancient city of Taxila, one of South Asia's greatest centers of learning and commerce. The city was established during the 2nd century BC by the Indo-Greek kings, successors to the empire created after Alexander the Great's campaigns. Unlike many ancient settlements that grew gradually, Sirkap was carefully planned from the beginning. Wide streets intersected at right angles, creating an orderly grid unlike most cities of its time. The temple district became the spiritual heart of the city. Rather than serving a single religion, it reflected an extraordinary mixture of beliefs. Buddhist stupas stood beside Hindu temples. Greek architectural styles appeared alongside Indian religious traditions. Persian artistic influences blended with local craftsmanship. Few archaeological sites anywhere in the ancient world demonstrate such remarkable cultural diversity. One of the district's most famous monuments is the double-headed eagle stupa. Its unusual decoration combines Buddhist architecture with motifs more commonly associated with Hellenistic and Near Eastern art. Stone carvings display winged figures, Corinthian columns, and intricate geometric patterns rarely found together elsewhere. The monument symbolizes how artistic traditions traveled alongside merchants and pilgrims across the Silk Road. Excavations have uncovered several temples constructed over many centuries. Some feature large courtyards surrounded by stone columns. Others contain small shrines where worshippers left offerings, altars, stone platforms, ceremonial chambers, and sculpted entrances reveal a city where religious life flourished in many different forms. Rather than replacing older traditions, new beliefs often existed alongside those already established. The surrounding streets tell an equally fascinating story. Archaeologists discovered shops, workshops, private homes, public buildings, and market areas arranged in an organized urban plan. Stone drains carried rainwater beneath the streets. Wide avenues connected important districts throughout the city. Sirkap was not simply a ceremonial center. It was a busy international city where merchants from distant lands met every day. Excavations have revealed thousands of remarkable artifacts. Stone sculptures, coins bearing Greek inscriptions, terracotta figurines, jewelry, glass vessels, iron tools, decorately carved architectural fragments, and Buddhist relics all emerged from beneath the soil. Together, these discoveries demonstrate how goods, ideas, languages, and artistic traditions moved freely across ancient Asia. The city experienced several periods of rebuilding. Earthquakes damaged sections of Sirkap. New rulers modified older buildings. Indo-Greek kings were followed by Indo-Scythians, Parthians, and eventually the Kushan Empire. Each civilization left its own mark upon the city, rather than erasing the past. Successive generations often incorporated earlier monuments into new construction. The result became a remarkable architectural mosaic. By the early centuries, attention gradually shifted to nearby settlements. Trade routes changed. Political centers moved elsewhere. Sirkap slowly declined. Its temples fell silent. Buildings collapsed beneath earthquakes and centuries of abandonment, dust, vegetation, and time gradually buried one of Asia's most cosmopolitan ancient cities. Modern archaeological excavations have transformed Sirkap into one of the most important sites within Taxila. Researchers continue uncovering additional temples, residential quarters, fortification walls, and public buildings. Advanced surveying techniques reveal details of the city's sophisticated urban planning, while new discoveries continue improving our understanding of cultural exchange along the ancient Silk Road. Large sections of Sirkap still remain unexplored. Walking through the temple district today, the priests have disappeared. The merchants no longer fill the streets. The voices spoken in Greek, Prakrit, Persian, and Sanskrit have long fallen silent. Yet the stone foundations remain, quiet reminders of a city where civilizations met not on the battlefield, but in marketplaces, temples, and shared communities. The temple district of Sirkap reminds us that history's greatest cities were often built not by a single civilization, but by many working side by side, hidden within the ancient ruins of Taxila. Sirkap's remarkable temples, orderly streets, and multicultural architecture preserve the story of one of the ancient world's greatest meeting places, a city where East and West came together centuries before the modern world imagined such connections. The upside-down tree buried on the beach 4,000 years ago, along the windswept coastline of eastern England, where the North Sea rises and falls with every tide. The shifting sands occasionally reveal secrets hidden for thousands of years. Most disappear again before anyone notices. But one remarkable discovery stopped archaeologists in their tracks. A giant oak tree, carefully placed upside down, its roots reaching toward the sky, its trunk buried deep beneath the beach. Surrounded by a perfect ring of wooden posts, it seemed unlike anything ever discovered in prehistoric Britain. Who buried an entire tree this way? Why was it built beside the sea? And what ceremony once took place around it? Today, it is known as Seahenge, one of the most mysterious Bronze Age monuments ever uncovered. Seahenge was discovered in 1998 after unusually low tides exposed ancient timbers on Holme Beach in Norfolk. For thousands of years, the monument had remained protected beneath layers of sand and peat. The sea that now surrounded it had once been dry land. As coastlines gradually changed over the centuries, the ancient structure disappeared beneath the shoreline, hidden until nature briefly revealed it once again. At the center of the monument stood an enormous oak tree. Instead of being planted upright, its trunk had been carefully inverted. The branches were removed, the roots pointed toward the heavens. Surrounding it, 55 split oak posts formed a nearly perfect circle measuring around 7 meters across. Each post had been driven deep into the ground with remarkable precision. Together, they enclosed one of the strangest ceremonial spaces ever found in Britain. Scientific dating revealed that the monument was built around 2049 BC during the early Bronze Age. Tree ring analysis proved even more remarkable. The giant oak had been cut down during the spring or early summer, allowing archaeologists to determine almost the exact season in which Seahenge was constructed. Few prehistoric monuments can be dated with such extraordinary accuracy. The purpose of Seahenge remains one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. No written records survive. No human burials were found inside the circle. Some researchers believe the monument was used for funerary ceremonies. Others suggest it marked a sacred place where rituals celebrated life, death, or the changing seasons. The upside-down tree may have symbolized a connection between the human world and the spiritual realm, its roots reaching upward instead of downward, but no single explanation has been proven. The builders displayed remarkable woodworking skills. Using bronze axes, they shaped each oak post with surprising precision. The trunks were split lengthwise, carefully trimmed, and placed side by side to form an enclosed timber wall. constructing the monument required careful planning, teamwork, and an impressive understanding of timber engineering. For a farming community over 4,000 years ago, it represented a major undertaking. The surrounding landscape looked very different during the Bronze Age. Instead of today's coastline, the monument stood within a broad salt marsh crossed by rivers and wetlands. Oak forests covered much of the region. Wild animals roamed nearby. The location itself may have been considered sacred, where land, fresh water, and the sea came together in a constantly changing environment. Nature became part of the monument's meaning. When archaeologists began excavating Sihenge, its discovery sparked intense debate. Many believed the monument should remain where it had rested for millennia. Others argued that rising tides and coastal erosion would eventually destroy it forever. After careful discussion, the timbers were removed for conservation. Each post was carefully recorded, preserved, and later reconstructed for study. Without this effort, the monument would almost certainly have been lost to the sea. Modern scientific research continues revealing new details. Tree ring analysis, microscopic examination, three-dimensional scanning, and environmental studies help reconstruct both the monument and the ancient landscape that surrounded it. Researchers continue investigating how Bronze Age communities viewed sacred places, woodland, and ritual architecture, even after decades of study. Sihenge refuses to surrender all of its secrets. Standing on Home Beach today, nothing immediately reveals what once stood beneath the sand. The tides continue rolling across the shoreline. The monument itself has been removed. The ceremonies ended 4,000 years ago. Yet beneath the changing coast, the memory of Sihenge still survives. A reminder that some of history's most extraordinary monuments were built not from stone, but from living trees. The upside-down tree buried on the beach 4,000 years ago reminds us that archaeology sometimes uncovers monuments unlike anything we expect. Hidden beneath the sands of Norfolk, Sihenge's mysterious timber circle, its inverted oak tree, and its remarkable Bronze Age craftsmanship preserve the story of a forgotten ritual whose true meaning has vanished with the people who created it, leaving behind one of prehistoric Britain's greatest unsolved mysteries. The houses built entirely from mammoth bones. Across the frozen plains of Ice Age Europe, long before the first cities, long before farming, and thousands of years before the pyramids of Egypt, a small community built homes unlike anything the world had ever seen. Not from wood, not from stone, but from the bones of giant woolly mammoths. Massive skulls formed the foundations, towering tusks curved into the walls. Hundreds of enormous bones created shelters strong enough to survive the harsh winters of the Ice Age. Today, these remarkable structures, discovered at Mezhyrich in central Ukraine, reveal one of humanity's most extraordinary examples of prehistoric engineering. The settlement of Mezhyrich dates to around 15,000 years ago, near the end of the last Ice Age at that time. Much of northern Europe remained cold, treeless, and windswept. Large forests had not yet spread across the region. Timber was scarce, but one resource was plentiful. Woolly mammoths roamed the surrounding grasslands in great numbers. For the people living here, these enormous animals provided not only food, but nearly everything needed to survive. The first mammoth bone dwelling was discovered in 1965, when a farmer digging the foundation for a new house uncovered a circle of enormous bones beneath the soil. Archaeologists soon realized they had found something extraordinary. Further excavations revealed additional circular houses, each carefully constructed using hundreds of mammoth bones arranged with remarkable skill. The discovery transformed our understanding of Ice Age communities. Each dwelling followed a surprisingly organized design. Large mammoth skulls formed the lower walls. Long leg bones strengthened the structure. Gigantic curved tusks created entrances and supported the framework. The spaces between the bones were likely filled with hides, branches, and packed earth to protect families from freezing winds. These were not temporary hunting camps. They were carefully planned homes built for long-term occupation. Some of the houses contained the remains of more than 100 mammoths. This does not necessarily mean the builders hunted every animal themselves. Many bones were probably collected over generations from natural deaths, earlier hunting sites, or seasonal gathering places. Each bone became valuable construction material. Nothing was wasted. The people of Mezhyrich transformed the landscape around them using the resources available. Inside the dwellings, archaeologists uncovered fireplaces, stone tools, bone needles, ivory carvings, and ornaments fashioned from animal teeth and shells. The central hearth provided warmth throughout the long winters, while family members prepared food, repaired clothing, created tools, and shared stories beside the fire. These shelters became centers of daily life in one of Earth's harshest environments. One remarkable discovery was the evidence of artistic expression. Researchers found engraved mammoth tusks decorated with geometric patterns. Some bones bear carved designs believed to have symbolic or ceremonial meaning. Small figurines, personal ornaments, and carefully crafted objects reveal that survival was not the only concern. Even during the Ice Age, people created beauty alongside necessity. The settlement also demonstrates remarkable planning. The houses were arranged in groups rather than scattered randomly across the landscape. Nearby pits stored food, bones, and useful materials. Work areas surrounded the dwellings, suggesting a well-organized community where families cooperated throughout the year. Far from being isolated hunters wandering endlessly across the plains, the inhabitants created stable settlements with surprisingly complex social lives. Modern archaeological research continues revealing new details about mesurage, radiocarbon dating, microscopic analysis, ancient DNA studies, and three-dimensional reconstructions help scientists understand how these remarkable houses were built. Researchers also study animal remains to determine hunting practices, seasonal migration, and the changing climate that shaped daily life during the Ice Age. Each discovery brings prehistoric communities into sharper focus. Standing where the mammoth bone houses once stood, it is difficult to imagine the landscape 15,000 years ago. Today, fields stretch across the countryside. The mammoths are gone, the glaciers have melted, the builders vanished long before written history began, yet beneath the soil, their remarkable homes remain. Silent evidence of human ingenuity during one of the most challenging periods our species has ever faced. The houses built entirely from mammoth bones remind us that humanity has always adapted to the world around it with extraordinary creativity. Hidden beneath the plains of Ukraine, the remarkable dwellings of Mezhirich preserve the story of Ice Age families who transformed the remains of Earth's largest land animals into warm homes, creating one of archaeology's most astonishing examples of prehistoric architecture. The 2,500-year-old water machine that still works today. In the scorching heat of southwestern Iran, where summer temperatures often climb above 40 degrees, an ancient machine still moves water exactly as it did more than 2,000 years ago. There are no electric pumps, no engines, no steel pipes, only flowing rivers, stone tunnels, massive canals, waterfalls, and carefully engineered channels working together with the natural force of gravity. Long before modern hydroelectric dams, ancient engineers created one of the world's greatest hydraulic systems, a machine so advanced that parts of it continue operating to this very day. This is the Shushtar hydraulic system, a masterpiece of engineering that transformed an entire landscape. The city of Shushtar has stood beside the Karun River for thousands of years. Its location made it an important center of trade and agriculture in ancient Persia, but the river alone could not support a growing population. Seasonal floods, long dry periods, and changing water levels constantly threatened farming communities. To solve this challenge, Persian engineers designed an enormous network that could control, divide, store, and distribute water with astonishing precision. Much of the hydraulic system reached its greatest form during the Sasanian Empire. Beginning in the 3rd century AD, however, many sections were built upon even older foundations, some of which may date back to the Achaemenid period nearly 25 centuries ago. Generation after generation expanded the network, creating one of the most sophisticated water management systems in the ancient world. It was not a single structure, but an entire engineered landscape. At the heart of the complex lies the Bandi Kaisar, one of history's earliest known bridge dams. Unlike an ordinary bridge, it also controlled the flow of the Karun River. Water was diverted into artificial canals that carried it toward mills, reservoirs, farmland, and the city itself. The structure served two essential purposes simultaneously: transportation and water management. Its design was centuries ahead of its time. Perhaps the most spectacular part of the system is the collection of watermills carved into the rock. As diverted water rushed through narrow channels, its powerful current turned enormous wooden wheels. These mills ground grain into flour for the surrounding population, without burning fuel, without animal power. The river itself became the engine. For centuries, families relied upon these mills as part of their everyday lives. Even today, some of the channels still carry flowing water through the ancient complex. The engineers also created an intricate network of underground tunnels. These carefully excavated passages guided water beneath the city, regulated pressure, and directed flow toward different parts of the hydraulic system. Some tunnels emerged dramatically as cascading waterfalls, creating one of the most beautiful sections of the site. What appears to be a natural landscape is actually the product of remarkable human planning. Every channel had a purpose. The success of Shushtar depended entirely upon understanding gravity. Engineers carefully calculated the slope of every canal. Water moved naturally from higher elevations to lower ones, without pumps or mechanical assistance. A slight mistake in height would have disrupted the entire network, yet after centuries of earthquakes, floods, and changing river conditions, large parts of the system still function remarkably well. Excavations have uncovered stone sluice gates, bridges, canals, mill foundations, reservoirs, and maintenance passages throughout the complex. Archaeologists discovered that the hydraulic system supported not only the city, but also vast agricultural lands surrounding it. Fields of wheat, barley, fruit orchards, and gardens depended upon the controlled movement of water. The engineering sustained an entire civilization. One fascinating tradition connects the Bandi Kaisar with Roman prisoners of war. Historical accounts suggest that Roman engineers captured after Emperor Valerian's defeat in the 3rd century AD may have helped construct parts of the bridge dam alongside Persian builders. Although historians continue debating the exact extent of their involvement, the story reflects the remarkable exchange of engineering knowledge between rival empires. Shushtar became a meeting place of different technological traditions. Modern archaeologists continue studying the hydraulic system using laser scanning, satellite mapping, hydrological modeling, and structural analysis. These investigations reveal how ancient engineers balanced water pressure, prevented flooding, and maintained constant flow across an enormous network. Many techniques employed at Shushtar continue inspiring modern water management projects in arid regions today. Its brilliance remains surprisingly relevant. Standing beside the waterfalls of Shushtar today, the sound of rushing water has changed very little. The mills no longer grind grain, as they once did. The engineers who designed the canals are long forgotten. Yet the river still follows the pathways they created centuries ago, stone by stone, channel by channel. Their remarkable machine continues doing exactly what it was built to do. The 2,500-year-old water machine that still works today reminds us that some of humanity's greatest inventions were never powered by steam, electricity, or engines. Hidden within the ancient city of Shushtar, a network of canals, bridges, watermills, and underground tunnels preserves the story of engineers who mastered the power of flowing water, creating one of the most extraordinary hydraulic systems the ancient world has ever known. The 10 million gods carved into a jungle hillside, deep within the forested hills of northeastern India, where waterfalls tumble through dense jungle, and ancient stone stairways disappear beneath thick vegetation. An entire mountainside has been transformed into a gallery of colossal sculptures. Towering faces emerge from the rock. Gigantic deities watch silently over the valley. Thousands of carvings cover the cliffs, as though the mountain itself had become a sacred temple. According to local legend, there are not hundreds, or even thousands, but 10 million gods hidden here. Today, this remarkable place is known as Unakoti, one of India's most mysterious archaeological sites, a sanctuary where mythology, religion, and monumental stone carving come together in spectacular fashion. Unakoti lies in the modern state of Tripura, surrounded by lush hills and tropical forests close to India's northeastern frontier. Unlike temples built from carefully placed stone blocks, the monuments here were carved directly into the living rock. Nature became the temple itself. Streams flowed through the sacred landscape, while cliffs provided immense natural canvases for artists whose identities have long been forgotten. The name Unakoti carries a fascinating meaning. In Sanskrit, it translates to one less than a crore, or one less than 10 million. According to one popular legend, the god Shiva was traveling with 10 million gods on a pilgrimage to the sacred Himalayas. He instructed them to awaken before sunrise. When morning came, only Shiva had risen. The remaining gods continued sleeping, angered by their disobedience. Shiva turned every one of them into stone, leaving behind 10 million figures, minus one. Whether myth or metaphor, the story gave the site its unforgettable name. The most striking sculpture at Unakoti is a colossal face believed to represent Shiva. Standing nearly 30 feet high, its features dominate the hillside. Large almond-shaped eyes, a majestic crown, flowing hair, and elaborate ornaments were carved directly into the rock with astonishing precision. Even after centuries of rain and weathering, its commanding expression remains unmistakable. It is among the largest rock-cut images of Shiva anywhere in India. Surrounding the great face are hundreds of additional carvings, figures of Ganesha, Durga, Nandi the sacred bull, and numerous other deities appear throughout the landscape. Some stand independently, others emerge naturally from the cliff itself. Stone panels depict mythological scenes, animals, musicians, and symbolic motifs woven into the surrounding forest. Every pathway reveals another forgotten sculpture waiting beneath the trees. Unlike many famous temple complexes, Unakoti was never enclosed within city walls. Instead, the entire hillside became a sacred pilgrimage landscape. Natural springs, waterfalls, and rocky terraces formed part of the religious experience. Pilgrims climbed through the forest, stopping before shrines carved into the cliffs. The journey itself became an act of worship. Nature and spirituality existed together as one. Archaeologists believe most of the surviving carvings were created between the 8th and 12th centuries AD, although some scholars suggest portions of the site may be older. Exactly who commissioned the sculptures remains uncertain. No inscriptions identify the artists. No historical records clearly explain how the sanctuary developed. Its origins remain one of the greatest mysteries surrounding the site. Excavations and surveys have uncovered additional sculptures buried beneath soil and vegetation, broken stone fragments, small shrines, ceremonial platforms, and carved architectural elements suggest the visible monuments represent only part of a much larger sacred complex. Every monsoon season shifts the landscape slightly, sometimes revealing details hidden for centuries beneath the forest floor. Researchers believe many discoveries still await beneath the jungle. Modern conservation presents enormous challenges. The same waterfalls that make Unakoti so beautiful also slowly erode the ancient carvings. Tree roots spread through cracks in the stone. Heavy rainfall gradually wears away delicate details. Archaeologists, conservation specialists, and local communities work together to protect the sculptures while preserving the natural environment that has surrounded them for centuries. It is a constant balance between nature and history. Standing before the giant face of Shiva today, the silence is broken only by birdsong, flowing water, and the rustling leaves of the forest. The sculptors have vanished. The kingdoms that once flourished here have faded into history. Yet the mountain still watches over the valley, its ancient carvings quietly preserving stories passed from generation to generation. Whether there are 10 million gods, or simply a few hundred remarkable sculptures, the mystery remains part of Unakoti's enduring fascination. The 10 million gods carved into a jungle hillside remind us that some of the world's greatest monuments were never built stone by stone, but revealed from the mountains themselves, hidden among the forests of Tripura. The colossal rock carvings of Unakoti preserve the remarkable story of faith, mythology, and artistic ambition, creating one of India's most extraordinary archaeological landscapes, where history and legend continue to stand side by side. The mysterious star map carved into bare rock, hidden within the ancient royal city of Anuradhapura, where towering Buddhist stupas rise above the forests of Sri Lanka. A single slab of exposed granite has puzzled archaeologists for generations. There are no inscriptions explaining its purpose, no temple built around it, no ancient text describing why it was created. Instead, its surface is covered with an unusual pattern of circles, straight lines, and geometric symbols carved directly into the rock. Some believe it represents an ancient map of the stars, others see a sacred diagram. A few have even suggested it was connected to meditation or cosmology. Whatever its true purpose, the stone remains one of South Asia's most intriguing archaeological mysteries. This remarkable carving is known as the Sakwala Chakraya, hidden within the ancient gardens of Ranmasu Uyana. Ranmasu Uyana, meaning the Royal Goldfish Park, was once part of the magnificent pleasure gardens built for the kings of Anuradhapura, created more than 1,000 years ago. The gardens covered nearly 40 acres with ponds, stone pathways, bathing pools, and carefully designed water features. Unlike temples devoted to worship, this was a place of relaxation for royalty, where architecture blended seamlessly with the surrounding landscape. Hidden among these gardens, the mysterious stone carving quietly overlooked the ancient city. The circular diagram measures almost 2 meters across. Its design immediately captures attention. Concentric circles divide the surface into carefully arranged sections. Within them, smaller circles, rectangular forms, intersecting lines, and unusual symbols create a pattern unlike almost any other known carving in Sri Lanka. The precision suggests deliberate planning, yet its meaning has never been fully understood. The name Sakwala Chakraya is often translated as the Wheel of the Universe or Cosmic Circle. This interpretation comes from later Sinhala traditions rather than ancient inscriptions. Some researchers believe the carving represents the Buddhist understanding of the universe, with different realms of existence arranged within a symbolic cosmic diagram. Others argue that such interpretations may reflect much later religious ideas rather than the original purpose of the monument. The debate continues. One of the most popular theories describes the carving as an ancient star map. Supporters point to its circular arrangement, radiating divisions, and apparent geometric organization. They suggest the diagram may have helped observers understand celestial movements or record astronomical knowledge. However, no direct archaeological evidence confirms this interpretation. While the idea remains fascinating, most scholars consider it only one possibility among many. Other researchers believe the carving functioned as a ritual or meditation diagram. Nearby sits a group of 4 carved stone seats facing directly toward the rock. Their careful placement appears intentional. Some archaeologists suggest monks, priests, or royal visitors may have gathered here to contemplate the diagram during religious ceremonies or philosophical discussions. The relationship between the seats and the carving remains another unsolved mystery. Unlike many famous monuments, the aquaculture contains no written explanation. There are no dedicatory inscriptions, no royal names, no dates. This silence has allowed countless theories to emerge over the years. Some propose it represents an irrigation system, others suggest a mandala, a cosmological map, or even an educational tool. Because evidence remains limited, archaeologists continue approaching each theory with careful caution. Excavations throughout Ranmasu Guyana have revealed sophisticated hydraulic engineering, stone bathing pools, decorative gardens, canals, and elegant pavilions connected to the royal capital of Anuradhapura. These discoveries demonstrate the remarkable level of planning achieved by Sri Lankan engineers more than 1,000 years ago. The mysterious carving existed within a landscape already famous for its technological and architectural brilliance. Modern researchers have documented the carving using high-resolution photography, three-dimensional laser scanning, digital mapping, and detailed measurements. These studies preserve every groove carved into the granite while allowing scholars around the world to compare the design with similar symbols from other ancient cultures. Despite decades of research, no universally accepted explanation has emerged. The mystery survives. Standing before the aquaculture today, the polished granite remains almost exactly as ancient craftsmen left it. The royal gardens have grown quiet. The kings who once walked these pathways have long disappeared. The meaning of the carving may have faded with them, yet its strange circles and symbols continue inviting every visitor to ask the same question. What story was the stone meant to tell? The mysterious star map carved into bare rock reminds us that archaeology does not always provide clear answers. Sometimes, its greatest discoveries are the ones that continue asking questions. Hidden within the royal gardens of Ranmasu Guyana, the enigmatic aquaculture preserves one of Sri Lanka's most fascinating archaeological mysteries. A masterpiece of stone whose true purpose has remained hidden for more than 1,000 years. The 6,600-year-old eel traps, Earth's oldest aquaculture. Across the volcanic plains of southeastern Australia, a network of stone channels stretches quietly across the landscape. At first glance, they resemble ordinary streams winding through wetlands, but look closer. The waterways are far too precise. The walls are carefully arranged. The channels divide, reconnect, and guide flowing water with remarkable accuracy. This is not a natural river. It is one of humanity's oldest engineering achievements. Built more than 6,000 years ago, these stone waterways were designed to catch one specific animal, the short-finned eel. Known today as the Budge Bim eel traps, they represent one of the oldest known aquaculture systems on Earth, challenging long-held ideas about how ancient hunter-gatherer societies lived. The Budge Bim cultural landscape lies in the traditional homeland of the Gunditjmara people in what is now the Australian state of Victoria. The landscape itself was shaped thousands of years earlier by a massive volcanic eruption. When Mount Budge Bim erupted, rivers of lava spread across the region, creating natural channels, wetlands, and shallow lakes. Rather than seeing the volcanic landscape as an obstacle, the Gunditjmara transformed it into an extraordinary system for managing water and food. Around 6,600 years ago, the Gunditjmara began modifying these lava flows with carefully constructed stone channels. They redirected streams, built low walls, created holding ponds, and installed woven traps at strategic points. As migrating eels traveled through the waterways, the carefully designed network guided them into places where they could be easily captured or temporarily stored alive. Instead of simply hunting whenever food was available, The community actively managed a renewable food supply. Unlike temporary fishing camps, Bujbim supported permanent settlements. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of substantial stone houses scattered throughout the landscape, built using local volcanic rock. Many contain circular foundations, hearths, and evidence of long-term occupation. These discoveries overturned the old assumption that all Aboriginal Australians lived entirely nomadic lifestyles. In this region, communities remained closely connected to a highly organized food-producing landscape for generations. The engineering itself is remarkably sophisticated. Some channels were widened to slow the flow of water, others narrowed to increase its speed. Stone barriers directed migrating eels toward carefully positioned traps. Water levels could be adjusted depending on the season. Every part of the system worked together, rather than fighting nature. The builders learned how to work alongside it. Eels were far more than an important source of food. They became the foundation of a thriving local economy. Historical accounts suggest that Gunditjmara harvested large numbers of eels each year, cooking them, drying them, and preserving them for future use. Surplus supplies could be traded with neighboring communities across southeastern Australia, long before written history reached the continent. Complex trade networks already existed. Archaeological excavations have uncovered stone tools, grinding stones, animal bones, fireplaces, and thousands of years of occupation spread across the wetlands. Radiocarbon dating confirms that parts of the eel trapping system have been in use for more than 6 millennia. Even more remarkable, many sections continued functioning until relatively recent times, passing from one generation to the next through continuous cultural knowledge. For many years, the significance of Bujbim was underestimated. Early European settlers often viewed the stone channels as natural formations. Only through decades of archaeological research, combined with the knowledge preserved by Gunditjmara elders, did the true complexity of the landscape become fully understood. The site revealed not only remarkable engineering, but also the importance of indigenous knowledge passed down across countless generations. Modern archaeologists continue studying the extensive network using aerial photography, drone surveys, three-dimensional mapping, and environmental analysis. Researchers have identified kilometers of interconnected channels, stone weirs, artificial ponds, and ancient habitation sites spread across the volcanic plains. Many sections remain hidden beneath vegetation, suggesting the full extent of the system has yet to be uncovered. Walking through Bujbim today, the wetlands appear peaceful. Water still flows quietly between the volcanic stones. Birds gather where eels continue their seasonal migrations. The builders are gone. The generations who maintained these waterways for thousands of years have passed into history, yet their remarkable engineering still shapes the landscape, just as it did more than 60 centuries ago. The 6,600-year-old eel traps, Earth's oldest aquaculture, remind us that some of humanity's greatest innovations were created not by massive empires, but by communities who understood their environment with extraordinary skill. Hidden among the volcanic wetlands of Australia, the Bujbim eel traps preserve the remarkable story of the Gunditjmara people, whose ingenious system of water management and sustainable food production stands among the oldest known examples of aquaculture anywhere in the world.
The perfectly preserved wooden city buried under a lake. In the quiet countryside of northern Poland, beside the calm waters of a small lake, an entire prehistoric town once vanished beneath the mud. Its streets disappeared, its wooden walls collapsed into the water, its people left without returning. For more than 2,000 years, the lake protected what the land could not. When archaeologists finally uncovered the settlement, they found something almost unimaginable. Wooden houses, timber roads, defensive walls, even household objects, preserved so perfectly that it seemed as though the inhabitants had only recently departed. Today, the ancient settlement of Biskupin stands as one of Europe's greatest archaeological discoveries, a wooden city frozen in time beneath the water. Biskupin was founded around the 8th century BC, during the early Iron Age. It was built by communities belonging to the Lusatian culture, one of prehistoric Europe's most successful societies. Rather than choosing high mountain peaks or rocky hills, its builders selected a small island surrounded by a shallow lake. The water itself became part of the city's defence. Natural barriers protected the settlement from both wild animals and hostile neighbours. The construction of Biskupin required extraordinary planning. Thousands of oak and pine logs were carefully cut, transported, and driven deep into the soft lake bed to create a stable foundation. On top of this wooden platform, the inhabitants built an entire fortified town, Everything followed a carefully organised plan. Nothing was left to chance. It was urban planning centuries before the rise of the Roman Empire. The settlement was enclosed by a massive timber wall stretching more than 400 metres around the island, built from heavy oak beams. The fortification stood several metres high and was reinforced with earth and wooden walkways. A single fortified gateway controlled access into the town. Anyone approaching Biskupin had to cross a long wooden bridge, making the settlement remarkably easy to defend. Inside the walls, archaeologists discovered an astonishingly organised community. 13 straight streets divided the town into neat blocks. Rows of identical wooden houses stood side by side, each measuring roughly the same size. Around 100 homes filled the settlement, housing perhaps 800 to 1,000 people. The orderly layout reveals a society with sophisticated planning and strong community organisation. Each house contained evidence of everyday life. Clay hearths still occupied the centre of many rooms. Wooden benches lined the walls. Storage areas held grain, tools, and household objects. Excavations uncovered pottery, bronze ornaments, iron tools, spinning equipment, animal bones, and farming implements. Together, these discoveries reveal a busy agricultural community where families lived, worked, and traded throughout the year. What makes Biskupin truly extraordinary is its preservation. Normally, wood decays rapidly after only a few decades, but beneath the oxygen-poor mud of the lake, the timber remained protected from bacteria and decay. Walls, roads, foundations, and structural beams survived for more than 25 centuries. Few archaeological sites anywhere in the world preserve ancient wooden architecture so completely. The settlement was first discovered in 1933, when unusually low water levels exposed rows of ancient timber along the lake's edge. Local schoolteacher Walenti Schweitzer immediately recognised that the wooden remains were something extraordinary. Archaeological excavations soon followed, revealing one of the greatest prehistoric discoveries in European history. The excavation quickly became internationally famous. Researchers continue debating why Biskupin was abandoned. Evidence suggests the settlement experienced several rebuilding phases. Changing water levels, fire, political conflict, or shifting trade routes may all have played a role. Eventually, the town was deserted. The lake gradually reclaimed the island, covering the streets beneath mud that would preserve them for thousands of years. Ironically, the water that ended the settlement also ensured its survival. Modern archaeology has transformed Biskupin into one of Europe's best-studied prehistoric sites. Dendrochronology, underwater archaeology, laser scanning, and environmental analysis continue revealing remarkable details about ancient construction methods and daily life. Researchers have even reconstructed full-scale sections of the settlement, allowing visitors to walk along wooden streets almost exactly as they appeared over 2,700 years ago. Standing beside Lake Biskupin today, the quiet water reveals little of what lies beneath. The voices of its inhabitants have long faded. The smoke from their hearths no longer rises into the sky, yet beneath the shoreline, the wooden foundations remain, preserving one of Europe's oldest planned communities exactly where its builders left it. A city that escaped destruction, not through stone, but through water. The perfectly preserved wooden city. Buried under a lake reminds us that history is sometimes preserved in the most unexpected places. Hidden beneath the waters of northern Poland, the remarkable settlement of Biskupin preserves an entire prehistoric town. Its wooden streets, fortified walls, and carefully planned homes offering an extraordinarily rare glimpse into everyday life nearly 3,000 years ago. A city protected not by time, but by the quiet waters of a lake. The forgotten fortress of the Indus Civilization. Across the salt deserts of western India, where the dry winds of Gujarat sweep across an empty landscape, the crumbling walls of an ancient fortress still rise from the earth. There are no towering temples, no colossal statues, no royal palaces decorated with gold. Instead, there are carefully planned streets, powerful defensive walls, and the quiet remains of a civilization that flourished more than 4,000 years ago. This is Surkotada, one of the most mysterious settlements of the Indus Valley civilization, a city whose discoveries continue reshaping our understanding of one of the world's earliest urban societies. Surkotada lies in the Kutch district of Gujarat, a region that today appears dry and sparsely populated. But during the 3rd millennium BC, the landscape was very different. Seasonal rivers crossed the plains, grasslands stretched across the region, trade routes connected distant settlements throughout the vast Indus Civilization. The location made Surkotada an ideal frontier town, protecting important routes between inland cities and the western coast. The settlement was established around 2100 BC, during the later phase of the Indus Valley Civilization. Unlike many larger Harappan cities, Surkotada was relatively compact, yet its builders invested enormous effort into defence. Massive mud brick and stone fortification walls surrounded the settlement, strengthened by projecting bastions and carefully designed gateways. Every entrance could be controlled. Every wall reflected careful planning. Security clearly mattered here. Archaeologists discovered that the city was divided into separate sections. An elevated citadel occupied the highest ground, protected by its own defensive walls. Below it lay the residential quarter, where ordinary people lived, worked, and carried out daily life. The organised layout followed principles seen across the Indus Civilization, demonstrating that even smaller settlements maintained impressive standards of urban planning. Excavations uncovered the remains of well-built houses constructed from mud brick resting upon stone foundations. Many contained multiple rooms arranged around open courtyards. Some featured storage areas, cooking spaces, and carefully paved floors. Although modest in appearance, these homes reveal a community that valued organisation, cleanliness, and practical design. The city was built for everyday life as much as defence. Like other Harappan settlements, Surkotada yielded a rich collection of artefacts: pottery decorated with geometric designs, stone beads, copper tools, shell ornaments, terracotta figurines, and carefully crafted seals all emerged from beneath the soil. These objects demonstrate that the settlement participated in the extensive trade networks connecting cities across the Indus world. Even this frontier outpost remained part of a much larger civilization. One of Surkotada's most debated discoveries concerns animal remains. During excavations, researchers recovered bones that some specialists identified as belonging to domesticated horses. If correct, the discovery would represent some of the earliest evidence for horses within the Indian subcontinent. Other scholars argue that the remains may belong to wild asses or closely related species. The debate continues, making Surkotada one of the most discussed sites in South Asian archaeology. Despite its impressive fortifications, Surkotada eventually declined along with the wider Indus civilization. Changing river systems, environmental shifts, declining trade, or prolonged drought may all have contributed to its abandonment. Like many Harappan cities, its streets gradually emptied. Buildings collapsed. Wind carried sand across the ruins until the settlement disappeared beneath the landscape. For thousands of years, its walls remained hidden beneath the desert. Modern excavations have revealed remarkable details about the city's construction. Archaeologists documented sophisticated drainage systems, stone-lined foundations, storage facilities, and carefully engineered gateways. Scientific analysis continues studying ceramics, animal remains, plant remains, and environmental evidence to better understand how people adapted to life on the edge of the Harappan world. Even today, many questions remain unanswered. Standing among the ruins of Surkotada today, the fortress walls still trace the outline of an ancient city. The gates no longer welcome merchants. The streets have fallen silent. The civilization that built them disappeared nearly 4,000 years ago. Yet beneath the desert sky, its carefully planned settlement continues preserving the story of a people whose achievements reached far beyond the famous cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. The forgotten fortress of the Indus Civilization reminds us that great civilizations were not built only by their largest cities. Hidden within the deserts of Gujarat, Surkotada's fortified walls, orderly streets, and remarkable archaeological discoveries preserve the story of a resilient frontier community, one that stood watch over the vast Indus world until the civilization itself slowly faded into history.
As our journey through these remarkable discoveries comes to an end, we're reminded that history is never truly finished. With every excavation, every forgotten ruin, and every artifact brought back into the light, we learn a little more about the people who came before us. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the ancient world. If you enjoyed exploring these archaeological discoveries, I'd love to have you subscribe for more stories like this. Until next time, sleep well, and keep wondering what history is still waiting to reveal.